this morning's talk on behalf of Media Watch Bengaluru. I'd like to first invite our speakers for the day, Roshan Chandran and Kalpana Sharma, to come. Thank you, and thank you very much for making time to come out today. I know it's a holiday, and we would have had a much more bigger audience, but this week has literally been, like Mr. Madhavan said, non-functioning week because of the many holidays, but thank you for coming. We have a interesting discussion today on nuclear energy, a topic that has occupied the front pages of newspapers, and then it has sort of gone away from the front pages because of other news and other more exciting news that is coming out. But we at Media Watch Bengaluru, which was formed about 4 or 5 months ago, believe that we need to refocus discussion and attention on issues that are important to us and not necessarily those that always make headline news in our newspapers and other media. So Media Watch Bengaluru, let me introduce you to it briefly, comprises media professionals who believe it is important to watch the watchdog, that is the media. We're planning a series of talks and discussions on media-related matters in Bangalore because we think it is important for the citizens as well as for media professionals, media educators and media students to be critically aware of the evolving nature and the role of media and to keep track of trends in the media, both positive and negative. Today's discussion, as you can see, is going to be on nuclear energy and the media, the cover-up, lies and the half-truths. We have Kalpana Sharma, who we're very, very happy to have her here from Bombay. She's a columnist and a journalist who will speak to us along with Roshan Chandran from Vistar. Roshan is going to speak to us about what the media didn't tell us. Now, at Vistar, he researches media coverage of people's struggles, and Vistar is Vistar Academy of Justice and Peace Studies in Bangalore. Kalpana is going to speak to us about how the media makes and breaks movements. So before I invite Kalpana to speak, there's a small message from Subbu, one of the members of Media Watch Bengaluru.
Interesting dance here to get to the mic. Hello everybody, my name is Subbu Vincent. Some of you already know me. I just want to make a small request. This is a series of talks that involve some amount of cost. There are logistics involved in actually organizing these talks, and we're going to continue to do them. We're very thrilled with the kind of response that you've actually gotten, even though this is actually a holiday. It's good to see all of you. We're asking people to make voluntary contributions. It can be 25 rupees, 50 rupees, 100 rupees, whatever works for you. It could be the cost of a cappuccino, for example, since most of you here seem to be that group. Please make a contribution. This is entirely voluntary. I'm not taking a gun out and pointing it at you. I will not do that, but I'll give you another reminder before the end of the program. There are 2 donation boxes outside. Either of the boxes can be used. You can put the money in there. All right? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Subbu. I'd like to invite Kalpana to share her thoughts on the issue for today.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you also for coming on a holiday. I didn't think that anybody would be willing to pull themselves out on a Saturday morning to come for a discussion of this type, so this is very encouraging. And let me say also, as coming from both from Bombay and being a journalist, that I'm so glad that there is a group like this, like Media Watch, because I think increasingly, given the influence and the power of the media on the lives of people, I think it is really important that there are these kind of discussions where we introspect, where we analyze, where we pull apart what is going on within the media. And I don't think enough of that kind of thing is taking place. There are a couple of websites, and but there are very few fora where this kind of open debate and discussion can take place. So for that, I'm really glad that something like Media Watch has come up here, and I hope that it will be replicated in other cities where this kind of thing is very much needed. Although the topic today is specifically on nuclear energy, I want to reflect with all of you more on taking off from the movement against the nuclear power station in Kudamkulam, about what role the media plays in making or breaking movements. And I think I just want to give that context before I come to the issue specifically of the way media reports on nuclear energy issues, which is linked then to Kudamkulam. So I have, when I was thinking about this, speaking here this morning, I was trying to imagine what it would have been like at the time of the Jayaprakash Narayan movement, the total revolution movement, if there had been the kind of media we have today. How it would have affected the movement and how it would have affected politics. This is something maybe somebody should take on as a project, to look at newspapers from that period of the 70s, when the JP movement was at its height, and analyze the way in which it was reported and depicted. As someone who was part of, I was a young journalist then, and I was very critical of the establishment at that point. I saw the JP movement from fairly close quarters and interviewed Jayaprakash Narayan a couple of times. And for me, what was interesting now when I reflect on it is, I think in a way the absence of media coverage resulted in a huge amount of innovation in which the young people who were involved in that movement went about propagating their message. So it didn't require the media, because it wasn't there. All there was Doordarshan in terms of television, and newspapers. Newspapers were basically, the mainstream newspapers were all very pro-establishment. So someone like Jayaprakash Narayan and his talk of total revolution made them extremely uncomfortable. So it was only a couple of newspapers that were anti-establishment, like the Indian Express, for instance, who were more supportive and reporting. But otherwise, I used to read the Hindu at that time. I don't think I was even aware that there was the Hindu, or only vaguely because I was in the north. And the Times of India and these other papers, from my memory of it, was that there was very little coverage. So, but the fact that despite there being no media support, in a sense, or exposure, the JP movement was such an important movement in the life, the contemporary political life of this country. Some would say it had a negative influence because it finally put together something like the Janata Party, in which the BJP was a part, and legitimized the BJP. Others would say, for once and for all, it broke that stranglehold of the Congress, which had been there right up to the 70s. Still others like me believe that the emergency was, it led to the emergency, but the emergency is what really, I think, transformed for many journalists the whole understanding of what is meant by freedom of the press because of censorship. So in many ways, the JP movement is what led to a very important watershed in our politics. And your generation here, I don't even know how many of you are even aware of this movement and how important it was. And it's really instructive to read about it, and to read about the kind of things that were done by the young people who were involved, who truly believed that it was possible to bring about a total revolution in the country. And incidentally, one of their main campaigns was against corruption. So it's like we're going full circle. The other movement I want to talk about is the Narmada Bachao Andolan, which again was in the 80s, and many of the early people who were involved were actually people who had been involved in one way or the other in the JP movement. But the growing realization amongst people that, these great things that were being built, what Nehru called the temples of modern India, the dams, that there was another side to them. It's actually the Narmada Bachao Andolan that brought this out, that it's not temples only, that they're leading to large-scale destruction of the natural environment, they're leading to displacement of communities who've lived in harmony with nature. They have led to areas that did not have waterlogging to get waterlogging. They have led to creating promises of a delivery of something which actually never takes place, because command areas never get exactly what was promised, and so on and so forth. But when you think back on it, it's actually the Narmada Bachao Andolan and their resistance to the Sardar Sarovar Dam specifically is what led to a whole discussion on what I would call destructive development. So development where you don't count the social and environmental costs. And sometimes the social and environmental costs exceed the good that could come out of what is intended with that project. So even if you were not pro big dams or anti big dams, you could not ignore the fact that there were literally thousands and thousands of people, many of them very poor, who were prepared to be out there doing dharnas and going on long marches and protesting about this. So for the media, again, at that point, again, there was no electronic media or very little of it. Some independent filmmakers like Anand Patwardhan recorded what was going on, but it was basically the newspapers. But it's very interesting because by the 80s, journalists had become much more aware, and I would say a lot of it had to do with the emergency and the pre-emergency. There was much more consciousness that there is a story out there that we're not telling. If you look at newspapers pre-1975 and then look at them post-1977 onwards through the 80s, you'll see this change where issues that would not be considered legitimate to report, like human rights violations, environmental issues post-Bhopal, all these began to find much more space as a legitimate part of reporting. So that at the Narmada Bachao Andolan, I believe, without actually intentionally planning to do so, were very media savvy. They understood that you have to, as a movement, as a people's movement, which is taking on a big issue which has to do with the direction of development policy in this country, you cannot do it without ensuring that the media understands what your message is and find a way of getting that across. So in my own look at the way the NDA operated within the media, because I was one of those who was also writing on these issues, I found they had a very interesting strategy. They had what I call carpet bombing, which is that anything that the NBA did, there would be a press release. Anything, any demonstration, anywhere, anything they have challenged, any statement that has been made, questioning a statement made, there would be a press release on the NBA letterhead, and it would be sent to every chief reporter of every paper, regardless. English language, all the regional languages, and somewhere it would hit, something of it would appear. But then they did a much cleverer thing, which is they did a strategized way of reaching out to the media, which is they identified journalists who at least understood this issue that they were talking about, destructive development, the whole point about development which has another side to it. And they worked along with those journalists, not insisting that they must write about NBA has done this or that, but actually providing them with the documents they got of the different committees that were set up, of the court rulings, many things which often in those days before the internet, it was difficult to get hard copies of many of these things. And it was the NBA that became a source for many journalists. Then they left it to you to figure out how you were going to deal with it. And that was, I thought, a very clever strategy, because what it meant was, even if you were slightly sympathetic, I think as journalists, many of us are very allergic. If even the movements we are sympathetic to start demanding that we write in a particular way. I mean, I've been associated with women's movement, but I know many times I get very resentful if I'm told by a women's group that, please write about this in your column, I don't like it, why should I, I'm not a propagandist, I'm a journalist. So to respect that you are a journalist, you write on issues, but here is our point of view, here are some supportive documents, now we leave it to you. And I think this combined strategy is actually what worked. Because again, if you look at the coverage of the Narmada Bachao Andolan, especially those big actions that they did through the 80s, and 90s, they got tremendous coverage in the newspapers. And of course, they were also clever in the way they did it, because they made it so visual. And it was a mass movement, so you couldn't ignore it. So just as a news thing, you couldn't ignore something like the Narmada Bachao Andolan, what they were doing. The Jal Satyagraha, which we now heard about recently in Omkareshwar, actually already had taken place in 93 and earlier by the NBA, and was covered by much of the media. So, but whether the media was hostile, as was the media in Gujarat, for instance, which was very hostile to the NBA, or whether it was slightly sympathetic, supportive, again, as far as the NBA is concerned,